Fresh Start New World servers are being merged into legacy servers? Well, sort of, not really. Let's dispel this quite quickly. It's only the Return to Aeternum event servers that are being merged into legacy, and even that might not go ahead. However, I think this does raise some legitimate questions to the people who played on these Return to Aeternum servers and how New World will actually deal with legacy and Fresh Start servers going forward. So let me show you the article and then we'll talk about it. If you want to support me growing the channel, then becoming a YouTube member is truly the best way. So this first section here is just saying we made too many servers because there was more demand than there was like server capacity. That makes sense. That's all fine. And they basically say we're going to merge some Fresh Start servers into some fresh, sort of. In regards to the Return to Aeternum worlds, when these worlds were initially open to the general player base, our intention was to treat them as Fresh Start world servers. Upon further review of the experience of both the Return to Aeternum event as well as the unique experience that these servers had with their respective player bases, we made the decision to instead merge these worlds into legacy worlds as opposed to Fresh Start worlds. For transparency, we believe that due to the nature and focus of the Return to Aeternum worlds to accomplish specific goals, they're now more in line with legacy worlds merging into fresh worlds, and if they merged into other fresh, they would negatively impact those worlds and economies. We understand that this isn't aligned with what we have previously stated, but believe this will provide for a better player experience. Well, hot damn, that's an interesting take. So just to say, some of these worlds are actually getting merged on the 6th, but let's just skip to the bottom of this because they have now posted, we are temporarily delaying the Return to Aeternum world merges into legacy servers. More details will be available at a later date. I am presuming they have read the room and found out that a lot of people aren't happy about that. However, it does just say delaying, not cancelling, so it's a chance that this could still happen. Now the rest of these merges are just fresh moving into fresh, and that's completely fine. That's what everybody expected, right? But there's sort of two key questions. Seeing the Return to Aeternum worlds be merged into legacy, is that a sign of things to come for other Fresh Start worlds? Maybe, maybe not. I actually don't think so. I think they'll do as much as they can to keep them separate. But then the bigger question is, why would you make this decision to keep Return to Aeternum as something that isn't classed as fresh? They did make this post when they talked about opening up the Return to Aeternum servers to the general public, shall we say, and they actually crossed out, moving forward they will be treated as Fresh Start worlds. Then they made like a little notice that said, we're not doing that. There's two problems, right? For me, it's the bait and switch, and then I think there's a legitimate question about, really, is the impact of fresh all that different from legacy? People thought that there would be like a massive difference. It doesn't seem like there is to most of the feedback that I can see and hear. But let's talk about the Return to Aeternum stuff first, right? They were billed as Fresh Start servers. I played on one thinking it would be a Fresh Start server. Now, I stopped playing on that Return to Aeternum server because there wasn't that many people on it, because it was invite only. It was all the streamer event Twitch stuff going on. It wasn't super populated, and I was like, well, what am I doing here? I'm not really having that much fun. I should have just played on a Fresh Start server, it seems, for, well, the obvious reason now that it's getting merged into legacy. I only got to like level 36, but imagine you played on that. Maybe you're a new person, you came along and you watched Asmongold or somebody on Twitch, and then they were like, here, I'm handing out invites, and you took an invite and you're like, I'm playing on Fresh Start, I'm very happy about this. And now you find that they actually plan on merging you into legacy, the thing that everybody who's been playing fresh has been warning you against, saying, oh, legacy is broken from all the exploits and stuff like that in the past, and everybody's got best in slot gear, and you're like, oh, I don't want to play on that, I'm going to play with my favorite streamer. Well, what are you getting now? Well, you're going back into legacy. Maybe that's if they actually follow through, and you know, if that's what we actually end up getting. Now, the argument that they're going to make, and I say they, I mean Amazon Game Studios, they're going to say that because the player base is actually so few and everybody was actually farming the materials because that was part of the challenge, that it would mess up the economy because they're going to provide a lot of materials. The Return to Aeternum players are not far ahead in terms of like quality of gear. A lot of them didn't even have like tier 5 stations because there wasn't that many people to actually get the stations. But what they probably do have is a lot of materials. So merging a really quiet server into a busy server would bring down the price and make those people rich. Okay, that's a bit of a problem. That's a problem of Amazon's doing, not the players doing. Now, the streamers and stuff like that are probably not going to be too bothered. I can't imagine they're that really bothered about it if they really wanted to. If it's like their full-time job, they can just go and roll on a normal Fresh Start server, right? Probably catch up within a couple of days. Wouldn't really be a problem. But for some people who are sort of like casual players who just came along and watched their favorite streamer, I think it's a little bit harsh. That is, it's harsh if it goes through they may just change their mind because of the community feedback, right? But I do believe that Amazon has sort of put themselves between a rock and a hard place kind of thing. If they merge them back into another Fresh, then they're right. That's been like the quietest fresh start servers, therefore the materials will change the economy. If they merge them into Legacy, everybody who wanted to play on Fresh is going to be unhappy with that. I'm not sure what the solution would be there. That's just a problem that they've made for themselves. And then there's this wider question of whether or not what will happen to Fresh and Legacy in the long run. As I mentioned earlier, it seems like Fresh very quickly has descended into something very similar to Legacy. People who have the tryhards, if you want, the hardcore players, they already have some of the best in-slot stuff. A lot of the catch-up mechanics, sort of like the golden scarabs and that kind of thing, have made it easier for players to get to 625 with best in-slot gear quicker. Your casual player is not going to feel that, but the hardcore players, they're already ahead. They're already dominating Everfall and Windsward. Is it really that big of a change? I would argue no, and I think the community who plays on these Fresh, whilst they may not fully agree with that right now, I think over time the difference between Fresh and Legacy will get smaller and smaller and smaller, and then I think if we ever get like a paid expansion, I think ultimately the differentiator will be completely pointless. What I think will happen at some point is that Fresh and Legacy will get like blended together and they'll all become Legacy servers. I think they'll just rename the Fresh servers as Legacy and say there's not that much different now. Over time things have like mellowed out. And then I think maybe when we get an expansion or when we get a massive patch like another Brimstone, we'll probably get some new Fresh Start servers and everybody will know what they're signing up for. I think some of this should have just been communication. They should have said, we're going to do everything we can to merge Fresh with Fresh. If we have to in the future, or the differences become completely pointless, then we might allow transfer between Fresh and Legacy. We might brand the Fresh as Legacy, but for now that's not the problem. We won't do this for at least 10 months or something. They could have given us some sort of time frame. If they're planning an expansion and some more Fresh Start servers, obviously they would need to keep that in mind as well. And honestly, at the minute it sort of feels like Amazon are not really hitting the mark. We had the hype of Brimstone, we had the hype of Fresh, and everything was sort of going well, but now it feels a little bit like there's a bit of negativity setting in, and I think some of that is understandable. We've just seen the roadmap, for example, and you can see on the roadmap there's not that much content. Like on this roadmap here, you're not seeing a new zone, you're not seeing new weapons, you're not seeing new PvP stuff. There's some interesting stuff on here that I'm very excited about, for example like transmog gear sets and stuff like that, and the raid of course, but there's only 2 months, there's not much. It doesn't feel as comprehensive as one might have expected if you wanted something that was similar to last time. Now I just made a video talking about why I think this is an indication that an expansion is coming at the end of next year. I still believe that. I'm still putting my money where my mouth is. But if we're not getting an expansion, the question will become, how is Amazon going to deal with this sort of lull? I believe that this sort of like tone down in hype effectively is intentional. MMOs and games as service, they tend to run on hype. They'll have a hype moment and then they'll have a quiet moment, then a hype moment. I think that we appreciate that we're in that sort of like quieter moment and we'll get our hype moment in due course. I think the next real hype moment is going to be that raid, and then I think it's going to be an expansion. So yeah, going back to the Fresh and Legacy thing, it's a little bit unfortunate for the Return to Aternum players who wanted to play as Fresh. It feels like you've been, I don't know, catfished by AGS, right? You were promised one thing and then it's not been delivered. That I'm sure is a hella frustrating for those players. And then it raises that question mark, what's going to happen to the other Fresh Start servers? And I think they've effectively just caused a mentality problem for those players that they didn't need to. The Fresh players now will be like, maybe we're eventually going to get merged into Legacy. Oh, I don't really like the sound of that. Even though I firmly believe that that's not the plan. I actually think it's only like a small subset of players who are affected by this, because there wasn't that many people on the Return to Aeternum servers, to be fair. So it's only a small percentage who are affected, but it's going to feel like a little bit worse because of the potential problems that they are possibly creating. But I say, let's see what they do going forward. My key question to you is, are you on these Return to Aeternum servers and did you want it to stay fresh? If you're not really impacted, are you? Do you think you are? Let me know in the comments below. You should also consider supporting the channel if you want to and becoming a YouTube member. It does truly help. What you should definitely do is have a most beautiful day, like and subscribe. Goodbye.